Welcome, everybody. This is Coach Glenn at Great Endurance Training. Welcome to the Run.Dot and Tridot AI training platform introduction, and congratulations in taking the first step to a healthier and sportier future. If you're just a beginner or a competitive athlete, our platform will guide you from where you are today to reach your sporty destination or destinations should you have multiple races planned. The following video will help you personalize the platform for you. And in order to help you understand the purpose of each section, we will sometimes use a metaphor like a car GPS. Now, as you've registered, time is to get into the portal and check all your data. It's very important to check all the inputs in your profile to determine your starting position. Like with the journey, in order to figure out your optimal route, it's important to pinpoint as accurately as possible where you are starting from. Now, in order to do that, when you log into the system, here on the left lower side of your login screen, you will have an icon, and there you will choose, for instance, on the first part, we'll look at the profile. For each section, there's an edit button that you can click. And then when you're done, don't forget to save. So the first section on the athlete profile includes some personal information about your age, your height, your weight, and also some self-scoring variables like sleeping hours, stress, and nutrition. The platform is so precise that it can take into account these factors to define the training loads and make sure you have enough rest to avoid injuries. The second section is about your training information. Training information. This section gives the platform a good idea of your experience in each individual sport. Very few people are equally experienced in all sports, and this allows the platform to take into account the needed tweaks and focus points in your training between the different sports. You might be a really good swimmer and a poor biker, or vice versa. Um, the AI might add additional technical trainings in your weak points. And so the sports age basically determines how long, how much experience you have about certain sports, how long you've been doing a sport. And that will give the AI the idea about your experience and what the expected rate of improvement could be between now and your race. Of course, if you've been racing for 30 years, the race improvement will be marginal. If you haven't done it at all, we can expect bigger gains in the beginning. Finally, we have the athlete bio. The section is really more about fine tuning the setup for a coach. You might consider some information. It doesn't really affect the planning, but it might be interesting for the coach to know what you're focusing on. Now, once you know where you're starting from, a second important variable of your trip is to define where you're going. This might be a single destination, or you might have a few stops along the way. In your race terminology, you have your A races, and then maybe some B or C races to kind of spice up your training journey. For this part, you can click on the left side of your toolbar for RaceX. Now, RaceX is a separate application tied to Tridot and Run.Dot and gives you the ability to put those races in so that the tool can optimize your planning for those specific races that you have in mind. Now, depending on your platform, your subscription level, you might be able to add one or multiple races. You might be adding to add running races or triathlon races and running races. So take that into account that you have the right subscription for that. Now, it's very important to start with the main objective for the next upcoming 12 months. So typically the A races are defined first. Secondly, you can consider B races and C races to complete that journey. Now, the system, it's important to realize that a B race will take into account, or the platform will take into account that race as a real race, which means optimizing intermediate goals with tapering and post-race recovery. Now, it's important to not overplan too many races because every time you put in a B race, that means you slow down your journey for the A race with 2 weeks. You cannot continue to train with those tapering and recovery weeks. So, too many B races will jeopardize your end result. And so, not overplanning is the key. A C race, however, is really just a fun intermediate kind of challenge. The system will not take that into account as a race. It will plan it in. It will make sure your training is adjusted, but it will not taper and it will not look at recovery. It will be considered as a strong or heavy training as such. So it's important to keep that in mind when you make your training. Start with A, then B, and then C. Now, looking at how to add a race. First of all, when you look at your races, you have the ability of adding multiple races. The key is to add a race. There's a little icon on the right upper side, a little trophy icon. And then you have the ability to add a couple of variables to search for an existing race in the library or add your own. In this case, I'm going to select a C race. That might be a triathlon from a Olympic distance. And I'm going to assume that the race is not listed. So when I'm looking for a race, I'm going to call it the test race for argument's sake. And I'm going to do this race in, let's say, in January, on January 6th on a Saturday, and it's going to be in Ogen in Spain. Now, again, this is part of my training schedule. It's going to plan the training accordingly for that week that I can do the race without overtraining and without tapering and recovering. Now you can add multiple trainings at the same time, or you can start with your A races, and then as the season continues, you can add additional races, and the system will continuously update as you go. Every time you add or delete or change a race, all the AI planning will be adapted and recalculated to optimize your plan as you go. Now, once we have the beginning, the starting point, and the destination, obviously we want to optimize our preferences for how our journey needs to work. So the way to do that is we go back to Tridot by clicking the logo on the left lower side in RaceX. Now, like a GPS, you can define the preference to take into account. For instance, you could say, hey, I want to use toll roads, or I want to use small roads, I want to use tunnels, or I don't want to use bridges, or whatever the GPS allows you to do. Ultimately, the AI in Tridot will help you see or help to optimize your training in taking into account those preferences. There's four different preferences. You can find them on the gearbox and then go for preferences. There's training preferences, there's user preferences, there's notification preferences, and then data preferences for biking and running. For every section, again, click the right upper button on the edit, and don't forget to save after you've completed it. Now, on the training preferences, you can see you can define when you want to work out, for which sports, and how long. I recommend standard to keep the standard level in the beginning. That will optimize the system with the most degrees of freedom. Later on, in another video, I will show you how to customize the number of trainings for each sport, which day of the weeks you want to do the sport, at what time you want to begin the training. But that's for another section. First, keep everything as standard. The second question is which day of the week do I want to do my long training days? Typically, a weekend day would be a great day to do a bike ride. Some people do their standard, it's going to be a Wednesday long run. I like to do my long runs on a Sunday so that my weekend is heavier than in the week to take care of other work related issues. If you're a Run customer, so when we're talking about the sessions to include, I'll show you this. You can have, normally for Tridot, it will be swim, bike, and run. Duathletes can choose for bike and run, but people that have opted for Run only will have the run only option at this point. Now, if you want to take a day off, of course, you can decide if you want to do that, yes or no, and if so, which day of the week you want to take off. And also, it will allow, for instance, if you go for a hike or for a walk, or you play padel or tennis, if you want to, when you use your Garmin or Polo or other devices, do you want those sports activities to be uploaded into your AI as well to take into account your stress load? And if you want to add strength training, yes or no, depending on your subscription level. Let's save. The next one is user preferences. Now, of course, they are linked to your regional settings. If you're an American based or Europe based, your metrics in the UK or international. So basically, it sets out your standard user preferences. And it takes into account also humidity, temperature. I'll come back to that. Also, the environment impacts how you perform during your trainings. At this point, linked to your location, it will be setting that separately. So don't touch it at this point, as well as your minimum training X course. Do not touch that in the beginning to continue your setup. Notifications, I always recommend selecting yes for the email. Every evening I get the email. You can set it up as well at what time that you get the training of the day after. Gives me a clear peace of mind that I know the evening I don't have to look it up. I see exactly what I'm supposed to do. And then the last one is the data preference for biking and running. In this section, you can connect your sports watch, which means it will sync with the Tridot and Rundot. So when you go out on a run or bike or swim, your watch will exactly like a virtual coach take into account and tell you when to speed up, when to slow down, when you're in the next phase, etc. And at the end, it will also update or upload your content to Tridot and Rundot to be able to manage and calculate your loads, how well you have performed, how accurately you did the right training right. Now, for the final setting, it's really important for the system to know how well you perform for every individual sport. The way to do this is to calculate your thresholds for swimming, biking, and running, or if you already know your FTPs, adding them to the system. The values that you see on the left upper corner in my case really represent a percentile for my age and gender, for my age group. How will I perform compared to 100 athletes, let's say? What is my strength in swimming, biking, and running? The system can take that into account to know how well you or what kind of training, how intensive it need to be, depending on your level, depending on your strengths. Because very few people are equally good at all the sports, it's important to test every sport individually. Most coaches take one test and then assume or extrapolate across all different sports, but it's important to realize that it's not the optimal way. And because the AI can cover all the data, we propose three different things. Now, the way to do this is if you go to the train tab, there's the threshold history. And there you can see that for every sport, whether it's swimming, biking, or running, you can add a test on a regular basis. Tridot will recommend certain days to do the testing to update the profile so that it can increase or optimize your training for your level at the time that you're doing the test. Now let's start with swimming. The swim test is called the CSS test. It's based theoretically on the swim smooth, let's say, platform or mentality. And in order to do the test, you need to swim a 400-meter time trial without rest, pushing hard to be able to maintain the speed without going reducing in speed, maintaining the 400 meter, pushing off but not diving. Then you take a 10 to 15-minute rest, easy swimming, and then you do another time trial of 200 meters without a push. Now, once you have done, you can go to this page and enter your data. You can click on the right upper plus sign on the right upper corner, and you can update the date and time and location, whether you were swimming indoor or outdoor. The second step is to define, again, the environment plays a role. How hot was it? How humid was it? What was the altitude you were swimming in? You can imagine swimming on 2,000 meters in the Alps will have a different impact on your FTP than swimming in the Mediterranean Sea. And so it takes that into account. And then finally, if you know your FTP, if you've done it with a coach, you can immediately enter it. Or in case you've done the test, you can calculate your FTP by deciding, okay, was I swimming in a short pool in yards? Have I 25 meters or 50 meters pool? And then you add your weight and your time for the 400 meters and the time for the 300 meters. Once you've done that, the system will determine your average or your optimal swim speed, in my case 145, and it will determine your swim dot. That will be the beginning of understanding and practicing your swim regimen, let's say your swim training. When you go to biking, it's important to test the maximum speed capable for the specific test. It could be a 15-mile ride, it could be a 25-kilometer ride, it could be a 20-minute power TT time trial, or an 8-minute power time trial. I recommend doing the 15-mile or 25-kilometer one to give you the best possible results or the most accurate prediction. Now, in this case, again, you go to the plus sign, you add the date and time and the location, indoor or outdoor. If you're using an indoor bike, a stationary bike, you add, if needed, the temperature, humidity, and the height of your training. And then when you calculate the FTP, you need to add how long did you do over. Imagine I'm doing the 25-kilometer ride. How long did it take me? What is my average power and my average? If you have different gears or different devices, different bikes defined, you can select which bike you use, because of course, depending on the bike, there's different resistance, air resistance, drag that will impact your FTP as well. So once you've done that, you would have your second bike FTP. For the run, very, very similar. There's two types of tests you can do. It's the 5 kilometer time trial or the 10 kilometer time trial. Key is again to be able to select a speed that you can complete the entire time, the entire distance, at the maximum of your capabilities without losing power or speed near the end. So it's a bit of, in the beginning, you'll have to go, you have to try this out, and then time and time again, speed things up as you feel more comfortable. If you feel that after like 4K, you still have left, speed up. That's clearly, you need to be at the end of your capabilities at the end of the 5K. Again, for the run, plus sign, similar strategy, date, time, location, indoor, outdoor. If needed, change humidity, altitude, and temperature. And if you have to calculate, select the 5K or 10K time trial, add your time, your power you don't need to add in a run, and your average heart rate, which is critical. I mean, if you have power, that would be great, but you don't have to add it at this point. And when you do that, you've really set up your results for biking, running, and swimming. As a result of this update, you will see that the system now will fine tune your planning based on your profile, based on your preferences, based on your destinations, and based on your threshold. You can see that for every sport now, when you do your training, the system will identify which zone you need to be working out in. So if you have a training and the training says, hey, you need to go biking, and 4 times 6 minutes, you need to bike in zone 4 for you personally, that will say threshold. That means that it will be at 292 watts for me. Or you could look at also at heart rate. I need to be at around 132 beats per minute. So the system tells you beforehand, once you've done the test, exactly what you need to do, and you're sure you're doing the best possible training. Now, typically, what you will see is that the training is identified in your calendar and is color coded: blue for swimming, orange for biking, green for running. And the little icons, the little the clock, the lightning, and then you have the heart, indicates what is the most important measure to take into account. So the first one here is about pacing. Remember when I said 142? That's what the system is going to check as, do am I doing my right training right? If I'm doing my training on Tuesday for the bike, it's going to be power related. That's an important one. But you can see that the next training on Thursday, which is an easy ride, here the heart rate is more important. So it's very easy to see, okay, what do I need to do it correctly? So let's say on Thursday, I'm going to do a workout. It's a very easy workout in zone 2, all zone 2, which means I need to be able to, for 1 hour, be at 107 beats per minute or 200 watts. Very easy. I know exactly what to do. On the contrary, for instance, if I'm going for a more interval or functional threshold training, that would be indeed today. I have my 20-minute test to go through. And so this is a maximum test that is planned for me. And you see, every day of the week, it gives me exactly what you need to do. And you could look at 2 different weeks in a row, so that when you plan out, it gives you the ability of plan things in. In another session, I will show you how to further tweak, further customize timing, trainings, priorities, etc. But for now, I think you're good to go. Good luck and enjoy the process.